you said there's this narrative about college football is dying. How long has that narrative been? Has it grown in the last few years, or when did that start?
Yeah, there's a group of fans and they're passionate, they're diehard, and they've been supporting it since they grew up watching with their grandparents, right? Like it's ingrained in the culture of who they are. I remember my first interview I ever did trying to get a job at ESPNU. And it was for my first TV show. It was me, Mike Golick Jr., and Elika Sadeghi. We did this tiny Monday night college football reaction show. But I went up to Charlotte to their offices to interview with somebody who's 2017. And the question was, should athletes get paid? And I came in and said, hell yes, athletes should be.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I gave my layout for it, and it created a huge debate. That was then. That was 2017, right? Here we sit years later. Now everybody's like, oh, the sport is broken because these kids are making millions of dollars. All of these things. Like people, college football fans want to control the variables. They want what they've seen every week. It's like the crowd that goes to the same restaurant and orders the same meal and they never want to mix it up. And it's been that way as long as I've covered the sport. And frankly, I would argue living on tour buses, watching SEC football for years, it's been that way since all the way back then, right? Like they are slow to accept change. And this has been the biggest era of change, I think, in any sport we've ever seen. When you talk about the transfer portal, letting kids go wherever they want to go. You talk about name, image, likeness, and you talk about playoff expansion. The face of college football looks different, but also this is what that college football fan forgets. Like I sat in a seminar they used to do at ESPN every year where they talked about who are the fans and what the future of the sport looks like. And a few years ago, the average college football fan lived in the southern portion of the United States, not shocking, and was about a 54-year-old white male. That
Mhm.
becomes concerning when you are a sport because you have got to find a young audience. You always have to have a young audience. I think what college football fans forget is that as passionate as they are, they were dying out, not their sport. So their sport has to evolve to make sure that not to hurt anybody's feelings, they don't become baseball. I think one of the hardest things about baseball is that baseball has become so regionalized and niche that nationally it's hard to make small markets matter. It's hard to make small stories matter. Like it's become this small thing that incredible people are passionate about. College football is the second most popular sport in America. You do that by continually asking yourself, how do you grow? And that's it's a much different mindset. You have to have a growth mindset in today's world. And I think college football fans, the old school, don't necessarily love that. But the fact that people were flocking to Deion is a reminder. There's a whole audience out there, like the NBA audience, that just wants their highlights and their superstars. And that's an audience you've got to have if you want your sport to grow.
It's I was just thinking like how like the talk around it is very similar to baseball, like the sport's dying, and it's like, no, I promise it's not. But then there's also like a whole it's super interesting to me just because I hear the exact same storyline constantly.